2025 has just began, and it already has gone off to a lackluster start. I won't say a poor start because ultimately it's not the worst thing that could possibly happen, but I did get some inconvenient news last week pertaining to my schedule for the spring 2025 semester. So I'll make it brief, and then I want to talk about this a little bit. So I was scheduled to teach trigonometry in the spring of 2025, and when I figured that out, I remembered that many of my classmates, or not classmates, but my students, I gotta remember which side of the desk I'm on, I got a lot of requests from them to teach trigonometry this semester because they were really interested in it and having me again. And I was like, look, I don't really control the schedule. They put me where they need me. I can put in a request for trigonometry, but ultimately it's up to them in the math department to put me where they need me. But I did get it during finals week. I got my schedule for next semester during finals week. And I was scheduled to teach trig, and I sent an email to the class saying, hey, if you want to sign up for trig, try and do it like as soon as possible because it fills up very quickly, the registration. And I think only one was successful, but she got waitlisted, and she's one of my favorite students. I guess I can say that. One of my favorite students, and she was waitlisted, and I said, don't worry about it. You can still show up. Someone always withdraws. Everything's going to be okay. Or at least I didn't want to promise anything that I can't fulfill, obviously. But usually someone drops, and then you can come in and sit. And if not, I can sign some paperwork, blah, blah, blah. Well, I planned out my whole semester, or not my whole semester, but my first week of classes. I took notes, lecture notes, did all that stuff. I copied the book into my online course page for students to access. I was doing like the pre-semester motions to get your class set up so students know what's up. Anyway, the next morning, I get an email from the math department telling me that they might need to move me to a different section, or not a different section, but a different class entirely, and there's a chance that I won't be teaching trigonometry. And when they say might like that, they really mean, hey, we're going to move you, and you can't really do anything about it, but they can't say that because, it's just the way it is. So I understand these things. It did upset me to get that information because I was looking forward to the trigonometry class. I had just prepared for it. But ultimately, these things do happen because apparently someone got too much to teach this semester, 2025, and they needed to move a bunch of people around, including myself. So that's just the way it happens sometimes. But needless to say, I still was disappointed I don't get to see some of my favorite people this semester. Instead, they did move me to a calculus class. So now I'm teaching a class called Brief Calculus 2. From what I've been told, it's a good topic or like a good subject to teach. I've never taught it before, so we'll see. The only thing about it I don't like is that I have to teach at 5:30 in the afternoon. I mean, that sucks, not gonna lie. My trig class was 10 a.m., which is a much better time for me, but I can't do much about the time. So that was one thing that annoyed me, but I'm over it now. It's okay. Hopefully I'll like the calculus concepts that we'll teach. I think the reason they call it brief calculus is because they try and condense Calc 1, 2, and 3 into, that's 3 semesters worth of material. They try and condense it into 2 semesters. So you just have brief Calc 1, brief Calc 2, where they take Calc 1 and some of Calc 2, put that in a semester. Take Calc 2, the rest of Calc 2 and Calc 3 and put that in a semester. Something like that. The other thing that's got me a little bit worried right now is my timeline. So I thought I know I've made stuff like this before on the channel, but this is probably the most detailed that it's ever been. What you're seeing here is my entire past 4 years, and soon to be 5th year of the PhD program. Columns are organized by semester. So this column is fall semester, this is spring, this is summer, and you read chronologically from left to right. So my first semester was fall 21. I took these classes in my GTA training course. And then I took these classes, which finished my core requirement, meaning that these were the classes that I have to take in order to take the qualifying exam. They offer summer classes, which I took. So I took these two laid back classes while I was preparing for qualifiers. So let me finish my thought here before I reflect on it. But I took both qualifiers. I passed the algebra one. I did not pass analysis, which means that the next year, starting here, I was taking these classes, but I was mostly focused on passing that analysis qualifier because they don't let you do research unless you pass it. So I did that, and then over this summer, I don't even really remember what I learned in those classes. I was too busy focused on this guy. And ultimately, I did pass that analysis qualifier. I think I got north of 70%. They never told me my score, but it was definitely north of 70. Definitely not 80, so somewhere in there. And then I was adamant about getting started on research immediately. So these two classes in particular, the convex geometry and the Fourier analysis sequences, I took to prepare me for my research, and I was talking to my advisor and blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to finish the candidacy exam because even though you do pass qualifiers, you are still required to take classes and that type of stuff. It's a little bit of a controversial thing that we have, but it is what it is. Controversial in that some people think, you pass quals, you should not have to take classes anymore. Maybe only take classes if you think it will help you with your research, which is what these guys were. But ideally, you really should be doing only research after that point and then finish ideally within 4 years. But I did not get my candidacy done here, and I'll explain a little. The candidacy exam is what's got me, the other thing that's got me upset. Because then we had this summer class. This linear algebra course was just absolutely headache-inducing. There were tears from graduate students to try and just finish that summer course because I think the instructor bit off more than he can chew. And I think he even admitted that. He was trying to condense, I think, maybe an entire semester's worth of linear algebra in 3 weeks. And then the other 2 weeks he spent on other topics. But it was quite the task to get through that. And I focus on this linear algebra course because it was this summer I was supposed to do my candidacy, but these summer courses completely prevented me from doing that if I was going to get an A. And to me, I was like, I have to get an A. And then, as you can see, I wrote Spain down here because after these two classes were done, I went to a conference in Spain. And when I got back from Spain, I was pretty much dead tired. And the next semester was about to start. So I didn't get much time at all to do any research. I did some, though, but it wasn't enough to do the candidacy exam. And this semester, which was the last semester, was so incredibly busy, I couldn't even believe it. So this class wasn't that demanding. The seminar is not demanding at all. Topology, yeah, you got to work for it. But in addition to this, I was also teaching a class and at the last minute given a class to assist, which means I have to grade and go to class and do all that stuff. And it was a stats class. Granted, this stats class is very easy, but there is terminology that I have to refresh myself on. So it's not like I can just go in and boom, 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 wing it. I have to, put in some effort to remind, like, okay, yeah, I remember this. I know how to do this, blah, blah, blah. This was a lot of work, and there was this, as you know, the conference at Brown University that I really desperately wanted to go to. This semester, we were supposed to do the exam in October, and then it became November, and then it became December, and now it's January. And at that conference, I made a declaration. I said, we're going to do the examination on January 13th, and I told a bunch of people to commit to it. But now I'm being told that we can't do the 13th, and now we're going to have to push the exam to the 20th. But I'm not really sure it will happen on the 20th either. And I say this because I feel like this candidacy exam could have been done a lot sooner if the forces around me were helping me achieve that goal. So what I want to say is that if you're thinking about going into graduate school, this is part of the motivation for this video. I remember watching a YouTube video of a famous lecturer. I don't want to say his name, but he's a pretty famous psychologist. That might be a clue as to who I'm talking about. But there was a video where he was talking about PhD students and graduate students in general who work in laboratories and do research and this type of stuff. And he was talking about how important it is not to be lazy and to carry your own weight, because lazy grad students kind of weigh other grad students down, especially if you're like working on a team. I know this doesn't really apply to me specifically because I'm in the field of mathematics. It's not like I'm working on a project with anyone. Technically I'm with my advisor, but you know what I mean. Like sometimes graduate students will work together on one research project, and those that are in the group that are lazy kind of bring everyone else down with them. So I remember that, and I was like, okay, I wouldn't call myself lazy, but there are definitely things that I need to not do if I'm going to get a PhD. So I watched this and thought about this long before I entered the program, because I was, I think, finishing my master's degree, and I had just finished it, and we were all locked down because of the pandemic. And I did feel kind of bad about not having, I have to be honest with myself because I had never really done research before when I was getting my master's. The thesis that I did was like the first time I really did some honest research. And my advisor was really good, and he kind of held my hand. In retrospective, I think he was very generous. He understood that research was not something that I was familiar with. I didn't know how to do it. And he supported me enough so that I could actually finish in the master's program. And when I was done, and me and him collaborated on a paper later, I reflected on it. I was like, okay, I should probably be more proactive in my own research. That's definitely a good thing to do. I was in my early 20s at the time, and when you're in your early 20s, yeah, you can be a good student, do all the homework, turn in assignments, study, get a good grade on the test. But that is like a completely different ball game compared to what it's like being a professional researcher, a scientist. I don't know what you want to call it. Doing research is very different from classwork, and it was not something I was comfortable doing at the time. So I had to be honest with myself and tell myself if I was going to go and get a PhD, then I can't do that. I have to be a lot more proactive. I have to knock down doors. I have to talk to everybody. I have to communicate and get organized and say, okay, this is what I want to do. Sorry, I have a beeping timer, but we're going to leave that in. I have to be as proactive as possible, or else because I want to get this thing done quick and I want to do it right, and I don't want to give the impression that I'm just kind of waiting for other people to do my work for me, or at least not give that impression. And for the most part, I think I've been successful, but I did not expect the PhD process to go the way that it did. And so what I mean by that is I was supposed to finish both qualifiers here, but one of the qualifiers is notoriously difficult. And I accept that, but at the same time, it's like, if one person or two people or three people fail that qualifier, then yeah, the problem lies on those 2 or 3 people. But when every single graduate student that takes that test fails it, I think that's kind of more a reflection of the quality of the test, which is what happened. And it ended up taking me 2 years to pass both qualifiers. And that was 2 years I did not get to do research. And then we have the next 2 years, which, I mean, we're currently here at the beginning of this one. So one full, then this one. I mean, I feel like a lot of the research that I've tried to do during this time was either shelved or put on hold in replace of something else. And because of that, not enough is getting done. And I do feel like what I have right now is good enough to do a candidacy exam, which basically, I should emphasize that the candidacy is just a outline for what you want to do and how you think you can go about doing it. It's not like your dissertation where you say, we have a result, we prove something, boom, here it is. It's more of a, this is the field that I'm interested in, here is a result, here is something that we think we can do with it, and this is what I've tried, and maybe this didn't work, and maybe this other approach will work. That's what I've been kind of told. But the advisor kind of sets the expectation. Your advisor says, this is what I want it to look like, your examination. And the beautiful part about the candidacy is that once you do it, you don't have to take classes anymore, and you don't take classes anymore. You focus solely on the research, which is great because this is a lot of classes on this sheet of paper. And I mean, and the longer I don't do the candidacy, the more I take classes. But the more I take those classes with those hard instructors, I don't get enough time to really do my research. And based on prior experience, like this semester in particular, I remember I stopped doing my homework in this Fourier class because I really, really wanted to do the candidacy here. So I didn't do homework and just did that, and then the project got shelved by my advisor, and in part by me too. I should also take responsibility because I was running out of time in the semester, and I really needed to get my homework done. And the homework problems I got that were left over for me to do, in my opinion, were maybe it wasn't just me. Maybe they were just really, really difficult problems. Maybe I was just really, really burnt out and I was missing easy layups. It's probably a combination of the both of them. But I did get stuck with some hard problems. That is true. But I should have been more proactive that semester. It's just really hard to teach classes, grade for classes, take classes, do research, go to conferences, do all of that at the same time. It's all of that versus the research. And what I'm worried about is this semester, because here is where I'm at now. I don't know what this summer will look like. I don't know what this year will look like. And I don't know what this semester will look like, except at the end of that semester, my funding will disappear. This is all the funding that I'm going to be given. So if I want to finish this PhD, it's pretty much got to be now, or else it won't happen. And I've been pretty proactive, in my opinion. I can't honestly say that I was lazy at all this semester. I mean, yeah, okay, no one's 100% perfect the whole time. But if you compare what type of student I am now versus what I was like in the master's program, there's a big, big, big difference. And and I know you're not supposed to compare yourself with other people, specifically other graduate students, but you should definitely be keeping up with your peers. And I definitely can say that I am putting in the effort to keep up with the other students. I'll put it that way. So the moral of this video, if you made it this far, don't be a lazy graduate student, but before you go into a PhD program, sometimes you may find yourself in a position where you're working really, really hard and your advisor's not putting in much effort to help you. And that's kind of a miserable experience. So just remember to keep that in mind.